The forgotten alien girl. In the far corner of a crowded alien city, there was a girl who no one cared about. She was thin, weak, and always hungry. Her clothes were torn, her eyes were tired, and her voice had been silent for a long time. People passed by her every day, but no one stopped. To them, she was nothing, just dirt on the street. She sat near the cold stone walls, trying to hide from the cruel stares. The other aliens laughed when they saw her. They pointed, whispered, and mocked her pain. Some even threw scraps near her, not out of kindness, but to make fun of her struggle. When she tried to pick them up, they laughed louder. For them, her suffering was entertainment. The girl had once dreamed of a better life. She had once believed that her people would protect her, but those dreams had died. Now, her world was only hunger, loneliness, and shame. She did not even remember the last time someone had spoken kindly to her. She was fading, and she knew it. Every day her body grew weaker. Her hands shook. Her steps were slow. She wondered if she would simply fall one day and never rise again. The city would not notice. And even if they did, they would not care. To them, she was not a person anymore, only a shadow. The crowd around her grew louder. They were celebrating something, food, wealth, or maybe just their own comfort. But for her, it was another reminder. She was not part of them. She was outside, unwanted, invisible. Children sometimes passed her and laughed. They copied her shaking walk, making it into a game. Their parents did not stop them. Instead, they smiled, as if mocking her was natural, as if cruelty was a lesson worth teaching. The girl watched and felt her heart break again and again. At night she tried to sleep, but the hunger kept her awake. The cold ground gave her no rest. Dreams came and went, dreams of a home, a family, or just a warm meal. She always woke up with nothing, only the harsh reality of another day. One evening, the rain began to fall. The people rushed into their homes, covering themselves from the storm, but she had no place to go. She sat under a broken roof, shivering as the water soaked her skin. She hugged her knees close, whispering to herself, "Maybe tomorrow will be better." But deep inside, she no longer believed it. The truth was clear. She was alone. She was unwanted. She was forgotten. Yet, in the shadows, something different was happening. Someone was watching her. Not one of her own kind, but someone else. A stranger. A human. The human had walked through the city many times before. He had seen the proud aliens, their laughter, and their markets full of food. But his eyes had always been drawn to the corner where the girl sat. He saw her hunger, her loneliness, and her silent suffering. Unlike the others, he did not laugh. He did not look away. He felt something heavy in his chest each time he saw her. The human wondered how a whole city could ignore someone like her. How could they walk past her pain every day and do nothing? It was something he could not understand. Humans were far from perfect, but they knew the value of life. They knew that no one deserved to be treated like dirt. On this day, when the rain fell harder and the crowd had gone inside, he saw her again. She was smaller than ever, shaking, close to collapsing. The human stopped walking, his hands tightened, his breath grew slow. He had to make a choice. Should he turn away like the others? Or should he do something no one else dared? The girl lifted her eyes just for a moment. Her weak gaze met his. For the first time in what felt like forever, someone was looking at her not with cruelty, not with laughter, but with something else. With concern. That small moment was enough to spark a question in her tired heart. Who is he? Why does he look at me like that? The human took a single step closer. The rain fell between them. The distance was small, but the meaning was heavy. For the first time, she felt that maybe she was not invisible. Maybe she was not worthless. The city had forgotten her. Her own people had treated her like dirt. But now, a stranger, a human, had noticed her, and that was the beginning. The beginning of something that would change everything. A human's first glance. The rain had slowed, but the streets were still wet and empty. The alien girl sat against the cold wall, her thin arms wrapped around her legs. She looked like a shadow that the city wanted to erase, forgotten, ignored, unwanted. But someone was still there, standing not too far away. A human traveler, different from everyone around. He had been passing through this alien city for weeks, blending in with the crowd, yet every time his eyes found her, and every time he felt the same weight pressing inside his chest. Humans had seen many worlds, but this city was something else. It was full of noise, full of light, and yet it was blind. Blind to the girl, who was slowly fading away. The human could not understand it. How could a whole people walk past suffering and laugh at it? How could they treat one of their own like trash and feel no shame? He had asked himself this question many times, and every time he had no answer. Only anger, only sadness. The human looked at her again now. Her hair was wet, sticking to her face. Her skin pale, her eyes tired. She looked like she had given up long ago, yet something in her gaze was still alive. Fragile, but there it was not hope, not yet. But maybe the memory of it. He wanted to step forward, to kneel beside her, to give her something, food, shelter, anything. But he hesitated. The crowd might see. The aliens might notice. They already treated him as an outsider. If he reached out to her, he would make himself a target. And yet, as he stood there, he felt his own heart whisper, "If you walk away now, you are no different from them." The girl noticed him. Her weak eyes lifted. It was a slow, tired movement, but it was enough. For the first time in years, she saw a face that did not sneer, did not laugh, did not pass her by. He was not like the others. She blinked, wondering if she was imagining him. The rain dripped. From his hair, his coat, his boots. But his eyes were steady. They were looking at her, not through her. Not past her, but at her. That look was strange to her. It was not pity. It was not disgust. It was something else. Something she could not name. The human took a slow step forward. His boots splashed against the water on the stone street. The sound echoed in the silence of the storm. The girl's breath caught. Was he really coming toward her? But then voices rose nearby. A group of aliens had noticed. They laughed and shouted, "Look, the human stares at the dirt girl." Their words were sharp, cruel. They wanted to see him walk away. They wanted to see him give up like all the rest. The human froze for a moment. His eyes moved to the crowd, then back to her. His fists clenched, his heart pounded. He could leave, now turn away and no one would remember. Or he could stay and everything would change. The girl lowered her head, expecting him to leave. Everyone always left. Everyone always chose the safe path. She did not blame him. She did not even hope. But he did not leave. Instead, he stepped closer, his voice low, almost carried away by the rain, but still clear enough to reach her ears. "You are not dirt," he said. The words cut through the storm, cut through the laughter of the crowd, cut through the silence in her chest. Her eyes widened. She looked at him again. Her lips trembled, but no sound came out. No one had spoken to her like that in so long. She had almost forgotten what kindness sounded like. The crowd grew louder, mocking, throwing words like stones. But the human did not step back. His gaze stayed on her, steady and strong. Something stirred inside her heart, something she thought had died. For a moment, just a brief one, she felt seen. She felt real again. The human knew this was only the beginning. He had crossed a line and there would be no turning back. The aliens would not forget. They would not forgive. But he could not stop himself, because in that moment, he understood something simple and clear. She was worth saving, and no one, not even an entire city, could convince him otherwise. The cruelty of the crowd. The next day, the streets were alive with voices, laughter, shouts, the sound of busy markets. But hidden in the corner, near the cold walls, the girl still sat. Her body was weak, her stomach empty, her eyes lowered. To the ground she was used to being invisible, but today was not like all the others. Today she had felt something different. A single moment from the night before kept echoing in her head. A stranger, a human, had looked at her and said the words no one else dared. You are not dirt. Those words had been small, quiet, almost lost to the storm, but to her, they were louder than thunder. She replayed them in her mind again and again, as if she was afraid they might vanish if she stopped. The human returned to the streets, walking with a steady pace. His eyes found her again, and this time he did not look away. He stepped closer, and with each step, the crowd noticed. Whispers spread like sparks in dry grass. Look, he goes to her again. The human must be broken. Why waste time on trash? Soon the whispers became laughter, harsh and cruel. The crowd gathered, circling like predators, their eyes sharp, their voices mocking. They pointed at the girl, at her thin arms, at her tired face, and now they pointed at the human too. One alien shouted, "Does the human want a pet made of dirt?" Another sneered, "Careful, human, touch her and you'll smell like her filth." Laughter exploded, cruel and loud. It echoed off the walls, drowning out the quiet breath of the girl. The girl shrank into herself. Her body shook as she tried to hide. She had lived through this before. She knew what came next. More laughter, more shame, more pain. Her heart begged him to leave, to save himself. She could not bear the thought of dragging him down with her, but the human did not leave. His jaw tightened, his hands curled into fists. He stepped closer to her, blocking part of the crowd from her view. His voice was calm, but strong enough to silence some of the laughter. "She is not dirt," he said again, louder this time. The crowd roared with amusement. Some clapped as if it were a joke. Others hissed in anger. They could not understand why a human would defend her, why anyone would. An alien stepped forward, tall and proud, his voice booming. "Why do you care, human? She is nothing. She is weak. She is worthless. If she dies, the streets will be cleaner." His words cut like a blade, and the crowd cheered. The girl's heart sank. Her body trembled. She wanted to disappear. She wanted the ground to swallow her whole. But still the human did not move. His eyes met the tall alien's, steady, unbroken. "She is alive," the human said, his voice firm. "And that is enough. She has worth because she lives." The tall alien sneered, stepping closer. "Then take her, human, feed her, carry her, waste your strength on her, but know this. If you do, you will be dirt with her." The crowd cheered louder. Some laughed, others spat on the ground. They wanted a show. They wanted to see the human break. The girl's breathing grew shallow. She whispered in her mind, "Leave me. Please, save yourself." She had never been saved before. Why would it begin now? But the human crouched beside her, lowering himself to her level. His shadow covered her fragile body. He reached into his pack and pulled out food, real food, warm and fresh. He placed it gently in front of her, ignoring the gasps and laughter. Around them, the girl froze, her eyes wide, her hands shaking. She stared at the food, then at him. She had not tasted kindness in so long. She almost did not believe it was real. The crowd erupted. Some shouted in anger, "Shame on the human!" Others laughed harder. "He feeds the dirt. How noble, how stupid!" Their voices mixed, cruel and mocking. But for the girl, the noise began to fade. Her world narrowed to the food before her and the human beside her. She reached out slowly, afraid it might vanish. Her fingers brushed the bread, warm against her cold skin. Tears filled her eyes, silent, heavy. She took a bite, small and shaky. The taste was simple, but to her, it was life itself. The human watched, his eyes soft. He did not care about the crowd, not their words, not their laughter. All he cared about was the girl finally eating, finally being seen. The crowd's cruelty grew louder. They wanted to break him, they wanted to make him regret. But the human did not move. He stayed, calm and strong, and in that moment, the girl realized something. For the first time in her life, someone had chosen to stand with her. Someone had taken her side against the cruelty of the world, and that small act, that single choice, was more powerful than the laughter of 1,000 voices. The invitation. The crowd was still loud. their laughter rolling through the streets like thunder. But the human no longer heard them. His attention was fixed only on the girl sitting in the shadows, weak but alive, fragile but still breathing. She held the bread in her trembling hands. Her lips moved slowly as she took another bite. Each chew was careful, as if she feared it might disappear. To her, food was not just food, it was hope. It was proof that maybe she was not invisible after all. The aliens around them shouted louder. Look at the human, wasting his food. She is dirt, human, dirt, nothing more. They laughed and spat on the ground. But their words did not reach her heart this time. The noise was there, but softer now. For the first time, she was not facing it alone. The human crouched lower, so that his eyes met hers. He did not speak. Right away, he only waited, letting her eat, letting her feel safe in that small moment. Then gently he asked, "What is your name?" The question struck her like lightning. Her name. She had not heard it in so long, not since the day her family turned away, not since the city had cast her out. She had almost forgotten she had one. Her lips trembled. She opened her mouth, but no sound came. Her throat was dry, her voice weak. Finally, in a whisper almost too soft to hear, she spoke. She gave him her name, a name that had been lost to the world, but not to her. The human repeated it, carefully, as if it was the most important word he had ever spoken. For her, that moment was more precious than food, more powerful than warmth. Her name was alive again, and she was alive again. The human glanced at the crowd. Their eyes were sharp, their laughter cruel, but he did not care. He looked back at her and said, "You don't belong here, not like this." The girl blinked, confused. She wanted to ask what he meant, but she stayed silent. He reached out his hand, slow, steady, his voice calm but strong. "Come with me." The words froze her. No one had ever said that to her. Not once. She had always been left behind, always ignored, always abandoned. To be invited was something she had never imagined. The crowd erupted again. "Ha! He invites the dirt girl. Human, you will regret it. Take her and you become filth too." Their laughter shook the street, but it no longer mattered. The girl stared at his hand. Her heart raced. Her mind screamed with fear. What if it's a trick? What if he leaves me after this? What if I am not worth it? Her body refused to move. The years of rejection weighed on her shoulders like chains, but the human did not pull his hand away. He kept it there, waiting, patient, as if time itself would bend to her choice. Finally, with all her strength, she lifted her hand, slow and shaking. Her fingers brushed his. Then gently she placed her fragile hand into his. The human closed his fingers around hers, firm but gentle. A warmth spread through her, a warmth she had never felt before. For the first time in her life, someone was not pulling away. Someone was not mocking. Someone was holding on. The crowd gasped. Some shouted in anger. Others laughed even harder. But the human stood tall, helping her rise to her feet. Her legs were weak, her body unsteady, but with his hand holding hers, she stood. He looked at her and said quietly, "You are not dirt. You never were. You never will be." Her eyes filled with tears, hot and heavy. They rolled down her cheeks, but she did not hide them. For once, her tears were not shame. They were release. They were life. The human guided her forward, step by shaky step. The crowd parted, some glaring, some laughing, some whispering, but none dared to stop him. His presence was strong, his choice unshaken. As they walked, the girl realized something. For the first time, she was not walking alone. For the first time, someone had invited her to move forward. The human did not promise riches. He did not promise safety. He did not promise an easy path. But with that one invitation, he had already given her something greater. He had given her dignity. He had given her worth. And though the city still laughed, though the world still doubted, her heart whispered a truth she could no longer deny. Her life had just begun again. Whispers of rebellion. The girl walked beside the human, her weak hand still held in his. Every step felt heavy, yet every step also felt new. She was no longer crawling in the shadows. She was moving through the open streets, seen and not hidden. The crowd had not stopped them, but their eyes followed. Their voices grew sharper as they passed. The human is a fool. She is filth, and now he is filth too. Let them both rot. Their laughter mixed with whispers, dark and dangerous. The human did not respond. He walked calmly, guiding her through the narrow streets, his grip steady, his step strong, but he could feel the weight of the stairs pressing on his back. He knew this was not over. The girl lowered her gaze, afraid to meet the eyes of those around her. She had been the target of cruelty her whole life. But now it was worse. Now she was not the only one. The human was carrying her shame with her, and that made the crowd restless. By the time night returned, the whispers had already spread. They moved like smoke through the city, filling taverns, markets, and alleys. The human protects the dirt girl. He feeds her, he touches her. He speaks to her. He says she has worth. The words carried shock, confusion, and anger. Some scoffed, saying he would grow tired of her soon. Others grew suspicious, wondering if he had a hidden plan. But a few, very few, whispered quietly, "What if he is right? What if she is not dirt?" These whispers were soft, but they were dangerous, for they planted seeds. The leaders of the district heard too. They sat in tall halls of stone, proud and cold. They heard of the human's defiance, his kindness, his invitation, and their pride burned. To them, kindness was weakness. To them, allowing the girl to live with dignity was an insult to their way. One leader slammed his hand on the table, his voice harsh. "If this spreads, others may begin to question. If one dirt girl can be seen as worthy, then others may rise. Our order will break." Another sneered. "The human must be stopped before he infects more with his weakness." Meanwhile, in the streets, the human found a quiet corner where the girl could rest. He shared his food with her again, gave her water, and covered her with his own cloak. She looked at him with wide, tired eyes, her voice soft, unsure. Why do you do this?" The human looked at her for a long moment, then said, "Because no one deserves to be forgotten. Not you, not anyone." Her heart shook at his words. She wanted to believe him, but doubt still clung to her. For so long she had been nothing. Could one man's kindness truly change that? As they sat, shadows moved nearby. A group of aliens whispered among themselves, their eyes fixed on the pair, their voices low but sharp. "He will ruin everything. If others start to follow him, we lose control. We should silence him before it spreads." The girl felt their stares even if she did not hear their words. Her body curled tighter under the cloak. Fear grew inside her chest. She had known cruelty all her life, and she could sense it coming again. The human noticed too. His gaze shifted to the shadows, his body tense. He said nothing, but his hand rested lightly near his side, ready if danger struck. He was no stranger to hostile worlds, he had seen many. But this was different. This was not about him alone. This was about protecting her. In the markets, in the alleys, in the high halls, whispers grew louder. Some mocked, some threatened, some questioned, but no matter the form, they all carried the same truth. The human's act of kindness was no longer just his own. It was a spark, small but alive, and sparks, when ignored, can become flames. The leaders feared it. The crowd resisted it. The shadows prepared to fight it, but the girl for the first time felt a strange pull inside her chest. Something she could not name yet. Something she had not felt in years. It was not full hope, not yet, but it was the beginning of it. And as she lay under the human's cloak, listening to the storm of whispers rising around them, she realized one thing. Her life was no longer hers alone, it was now tied to his. And because of that, the whole city would soon be forced to choose. The breaking point. The city had grown restless. The human's small act of kindness had spread like a fire in dry grass. Whispers turned into arguments. Arguments turned into anger. The leaders could not ignore it any longer. The girl walked beside him still, her steps slow, her body weak. But each day she looked less like a shadow and more like someone alive. Her eyes no longer hid completely. They dared to look at the world again, even if only for moments, and that was enough to shake the city one morning. The human led her through the central square. The air was heavy, the stairs sharper than ever. Crowds gathered, blocking their path. Murmurs rolled like waves. There they are, the human and his dirt girl. They will regret this. Then, from the steps of a great stone hall, the leaders appeared. Tall, proud, wrapped in rich robes, their eyes burned with cold fury. The crowd grew silent, waiting. The tallest leader raised his voice deep and sharp. Human, his tone carried. Across the square, you shame yourself, you shame us, you shame this city. The human stopped walking, but he did not let go of the girl's hand. He looked up at them calmly, his face unreadable. The leader pointed toward the girl, his words like poison. She is nothing. She is filth. She was cast aside for a reason, and yet you dare to lift her up. You dare to give her worth. You dare to defy our law. The crowd murmured louder. Some nodded, some sneered, others only watched, waiting for the human's answer. The girl trembled. Her heart pounded in her chest. She had never stood in the center before, never been seen by so many at once. Shame pressed down on her like a heavy weight. She wanted to pull away, to hide again in the shadows. She whispered, "Please, leave me. Save yourself." But the human only squeezed her hand tighter. The leader's voice thundered again. "Human, this is your last chance. Leave her. Walk away. Prove that you are not a fool. Prove that you are not weak. Leave her to the dirt where she belongs, or face the wrath of this city." Silence followed. A silence so heavy it felt like the square itself was holding its breath. Every eye turned to the human, waiting. The girl closed her eyes, expecting him to let go, expecting his hand to slip away like all the others before him. She prepared herself for the familiar sting of abandonment, but the human did not let go. Instead, he stepped forward, pulling her gently with him. His voice was calm, but it carried across the square. "No," he said. The word struck like a blade, simple, clear, unshaken. Gasps rippled through the crowd. The leader's face darkened, his voice rose, furious. "No? You dare defy us?" The human's eyes did not waver. "She is not dirt. She is not nothing. She is alive, and she matters." The square erupted. Some shouted in rage, "Weak human! Throw them out!" Others fell into stunned silence, their hearts shaken. The leader's robe swayed as he stepped down the stairs, his voice sharp. "You risk everything for her. Why? She cannot give you power. She cannot give you wealth. She cannot give you anything." The human stood tall, his voice steady. "She gives me something greater. She reminds me of what it means to be human, to see life and honor it no matter how small, no matter how broken." The girl's eyes opened wide. Tears slid down her cheeks. Her chest ached with something she had not felt in years. Belief. For the first time, she believed someone truly saw her, truly valued her. The leader raised his arm, signaling the guards. "Take them," he ordered. The guards moved forward, heavy steps echoing against the stone. The crowd leaned closer, waiting for the human to break, to surrender. But he did not move. His grip on the girl's hand only grew firmer. His eyes were clear, his voice steady. "If you come for her, you come for me. I will not abandon her." The square shook with shouts, anger and shock mixing like storm clouds. Some screamed for punishment, others whispered in awe. And in that moment, a crack split through the city's heart. Some saw weakness, but others saw courage. Some saw rebellion, but others saw truth. The leaders had demanded submission, but instead, the human had given them defiance. This was the breaking point. The world they had built on cruelty and shame would never be the same again. The human's choice. The square was chaos. Shouts clashed in the air like blades. The leaders demanded obedience, the guards pressed forward, and the crowd swayed between rage and silence. In the center of it all stood the human, holding the alien girl's fragile hand as if it were the most precious thing in the universe. He had been given a choice: abandon her or be crushed by the weight of the city's wrath. Everyone expected him to surrender. Everyone expected him to step back, to let her fall once more into the dirt. But the human did not step back. He stepped forward. His voice rose above the storm, calm but unshakable. You tell me she is dirt. You tell me she is nothing. But I see her. I hear her. She is alive, and that is enough. I will not abandon her. Not now. Not ever. The words rang through the square, carried by something stronger than anger. They carried truth. The crowd froze. Some scoffed, spitting on the ground. Others looked down, their faces troubled. For deep inside, they knew the human was right. They had walked past her suffering for years. They had laughed while she starved. And now, faced with his defiance, they could no longer pretend they were innocent. The leaders grew, furious. Their pride could not allow this fool. One shouted, "Your weakness will destroy you." Another bellowed, "You insult our order. Guards, take him down." The guards advanced, weapons raised. Their heavy boots shook the stone. The girl clung to the human's arm, her body trembling. Her heart screamed in fear. She whispered, "Please leave me. They will hurt you." But the human turned to her, his eyes steady. "I will not leave you, not now, not ever." Her tears fell freely, not from shame this time, but from something else. Something brighter. For the first time in her life, she was worth protecting, worth standing beside. The guards closed in, but something unexpected happened. From the crowd, a single voice rose. "He is right." It was quiet, almost lost, but it was there. Another voice followed, stronger. "She is not dirt." The leaders turned in shock, their control cracked as more voices joined, some still shouted against. But the silence of others was louder than any insult. For the first time, the cruelty of the city was questioned. For the first time, doubt had broken through. The human stood firm, the girl by his side, and though the guards could strike, though the leaders could rage, they could not stop what had begun, because kindness, once seen, cannot be unseen. The girl's chest rose and fell as she took in the moment. The stares that once cut her down now felt different. Some were still cruel, but others were softer, uncertain. A few even looked ashamed. The human lifted her hand higher, showing her to the crowd, his voice steady. "She has worth, and no one will take that from her again." The square fell into silence, a silence that carried more weight than any shout. The leaders seethed, their pride broken, but they could not silence the truth spreading through their people. What had been mocked as weakness was now seen by some as strength. What had been hidden in the dirt was now standing in the open. The girl looked at the human, her lips trembling. Her voice, soft but clear enough to be heard. Why do you see me when no one else does?" The human smiled, just slightly. "Because you were always worth seeing. They just chose not to." Her tears fell again, but this time, they felt like freedom. That day, the city did not fall. The leaders still held their power. The crowd still whispered in confusion, but something deeper had changed. A crack had formed in the walls of cruelty, and through that crack, light had entered. The girl was no longer alone. She was no longer forgotten. She was no longer dirt, because a human had made a choice to see her, a choice to stand with her, a choice that defied an entire world. And sometimes, one choice is enough to change everything.